Before we get started, I need to thank the wonderful backers of my podcast, sending love and gratitude to Crystal Carroll, Terry Smith, AAK Music Talks, Stephen Malio, Aunt Mary, Dale Hozek, Captain America, John Munson, the wonderful Belly Pori, my favorite contributor on my other podcast, Holly Mack, the former Springsteen mayor, Betsy Hodges, Chris Bloom, Andrew Goddard, and of course, the wonderful Anna Lynn. If you want to support the podcast by kicking a few coins toward our cost, go to Set Lusting Bruce Patreon and sign up for whatever level you feel comfortable supporting. Be the first to hear about upcoming episodes, hear unedited episodes of the podcast, and of course, every patron gets a handwritten thank you note and a Set Lusting Bruce sticker sent to them, which based on my handwriting may not be that great of a benefit. Now, on to the show.
And of course, I was very naive. I brought all this little Stephen memorabilia. And of course, we get in no autographs, just pictures. Okay, fine. We get our pictures, and as I'm slowly leaving, I'm really taking my time. And I had the 45 of Sun City. And I kind of held it up at Steve, and he motioned for me to stay put. So my friends have left, and I'm in there waiting. He gets through all the people, and he signs the Sun City form. Oh, so I couldn't believe it. So he gives me a hug, and I whisper in his ear, "Can you get Bruce to play Jungle Land tonight?" And he laughs. He goes, "You know I'm not the boss." And I said, "I know, but you don't understand. I haven't heard it in years. 14 shows, he's never played it." And there's some people, I guess, that worked with him. It was like, "Yeah, you should get him to play Jungle Land." So he didn't make many promises. I'll see what I can do. Thanked him profusely, went to my seat. And my brother, who'd never seen Springsteen, was with our group. Goes through the whole show, doesn't play Jungle Land. All right, whatever. Comes back for the encore, and it's Meeting Across the River. And we all know that he'll play Jungle Land without Meeting, but he never plays Meeting without Jungle Land. So now my phone is starting to blow up because everybody on Backstreets.com is waiting to what the set list is going to be. And they all know I want Jungle Land. And of course he plays it. And I'm like so thrilled. It was such a beautiful version of it. And I was on the Stevie side of the stage, and I had one of those oversized Underground Garage bumper stickers. The lights came up, and I started waving it at Steve, and he saw it. And he pointed at me and said, "You're welcome." And my brother goes, "That rock star is talking to you." And I went, "Yeah, well, it's a thing." So finally, we got a hold of the set list. And he had crossed out whatever he was going to play and put in Jungle Land and Meeting. So he wasn't going to play it that night. Steve made it happen. I will take that to my grave. It was the best night ever.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me tonight, a new friend, Katherine Byrd. Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia, which I may add is the home of Clarence Clemens.
Very nice.
Yes. And just a regular teenage girl who grew up to become a movie theater manager for almost 20 years. And then I was in media both radio and newspaper. And now I'm happily retired and waiting for a tour.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Absolutely. Well, what movie? What was it? A movie theater chain? Did you work? Did you manage a chain?
Yeah, I worked for AMC Theaters. I was the operating and marketing manager.
Okay,
So,
very nice.
which kept me from a lot of concerts because I mostly work nights and weekends.
Absolutely, I guess. That is my default chain. There is one. There is two near me, and one of them, the pandemic was not kind to it, but yeah, unfortunately. But the other one is in great shape, and so in fact, I went and saw Doctor Strange this past weekend and enjoyed it. So yeah, well, Katherine, we always like to start at the beginning. So you're growing up there in Virginia. What kind of music did your family listen to? Was it a musical family?
Well, actually, it wasn't.
Okay.
I was born in 1954.
Okay.
So I was pretty much raised on television. It was my babysitter.
Okay.
And one of the things I discovered very early on was American Bandstand.
Ah.
So actually, I'm really the only member of the family who's really into music. And I can thank Dick Clark for that, I guess.
Okay.
So when we moved to the suburbs, my parents did get a stereo console. So, but I played music pretty loud, so I had to get my own set in my bedroom. So
most people, a few of my guests have had the experience you've had where, their parents weren't into music a lot. When did you discover your passion for music? Not necessarily Bruce, but music.
It was Chubby Checker doing the twist.
Very nice.
Yes, Chubby Checker doing the twist on American Bandstand.
Right.
From a very early age, I listened to the radio. And when I could sneak away from my parents, I would call the radio stations to make requests. And this is when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got in trouble too. But, I would, back then, DJs were real personalities and they'd make appearances. Yes. And I would always beg my dad to take me to such a place so I could meet Steve Canyon or Babalu Big Daddy, who were our local DJs. So
when I'm a few years younger than you, I was born in 59. And so I also remember that I went to high school, graduated in 77, but I remember growing up in Louisiana, Top 4 radio, huge. And those DJs, like I remember one that was they had a contest and I forgot what it was. The winning school, he said he would dye his afro the color of their school colors.
Oh,
I don't remember what the contest was. I just remember that winning now that you mentioned that. So you music early spoke to you. In high school, what kind of music were you listening to? And talk to me about when you discovered Bruce and what about him spoke to you.
Well, obviously the big turning point for most of us in this age bracket was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
So I clearly remember practically sitting on top of the TV set to watch it and my dad just shaking his head in horror. But he did buy me the White Album for Christmas. So
okay, there you go. That's something.
Yeah. So I just loved rock and roll, the Beatles, the Monkees, Paul Revere and the Raiders, Three Dog Night, Led Zeppelin. I mean, that, Motown. So all of that was what I grew up on. I am upset that I was too young because apparently during my later teen years, Bruce was spending a lot of time in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
With his various different bands. And, but I just didn't know and wouldn't have been old enough anyway to search him down in Richmond. So I discovered him, which was the year Born to Run came out and the year I graduated from high school. So once I discovered Born to Run, then I went and bought his back catalog. And then Darkness came out, and that was my Bible forever. So, but I've been telling you earlier, since I worked a lot of nights and weekends, I didn't see Bruce until 1985.
Okay.
Born in the USA tour. So, but I made up ground after that.
So did you start working at movie theaters very early, or just other jobs were working you at night?
Other jobs, I put myself through college. So I waitressed, I did cashier jobs. It was always nights. I was in the theater. I was a theater major. So my weekends were usually involved in whatever production we were doing.
I'm laughing because I had there was a local sports talk show host that, kind of sounds like kind of your era. And he knew nothing about pop culture because I was in bands and stuff. So he played in local bands. So instead of going to movies, he was playing it just like Bruce at all these different local dives. Right. And so they would always pick at him like, how did you not see this TV show? I was in bands and stuff, right? So you're like working nights and doing that. When you heard Born to Run, what about it spoke to you? What about his music kind of called you?
It was really more the instruments, the music, although the lyrics to Born to Run, are fabulous, but I really didn't get into what he was saying in his songs till much later. His reputation at that time was all his songs were about cars and girls. So, and that was okay. It's even hard to describe, but it was just such a powerful sound. And of course, we all know what he went through to get that. We didn't know it at the time. We found out later.
Right.
And that's when I embraced Jungle Land. Jungle Land is my number one favorite song of all time.
You mentioned your first show wasn't until 85. So even though you're in Virginia, just circumstances you didn't have a chance to go see him.
Right. And he came here. He came in with that tour, the River Tour. And I was oblivious to it because, I had to work for a living.
Yeah.
And when he toured in 85, I was working at a record store. So it was kind of easier to get tickets.
Yeah.
And of course I was in the nosebleed. I needed binoculars, but that's okay. It was a fantastic show. I'd never seen a rock concert that insane. That was just so much fun and so epic. And so that's when I got really hooked. And isn't that the truth? Because I know a lot of people that are like, Bruce Springsteen. And I go, no, come with me to a show. And then they're like, oh my God, Bruce Springsteen. So,
Catherine, I was talking to that. I say this often on the podcast that two kinds of people, the people that go to their first show and go, wow, that was long. And then the second that say, oh my goodness, when can I go do this again?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I always like to preface this question with the amount of shows you've seen Bruce is not perform live isn't a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are because circumstances are different from everyone. But you mentioned you've made up for it. So have you counted how many shows you've gone to?
I actually lost count.
Okay.
I had a spreadsheet on my computer, which got stolen and I never recreated it, but I've seen him about 75 times.
Okay.
And the majority of that was from 2000 on.
Okay. So there is a fun website called My Boss Time, where you can go and it has every tour ever. And you can create a profile free. And then you go and say, yep, I was that one. Yep, at this one. Yep, I was this one. And then behind the scenes, we'll do a lot of the fun. It'll tell you, this is your most heard song. This is your most
Tell me what that is again.
It is called myBossTime.com.
Great.
Yeah, it is a rabbit hole that you will go, Jesse, why did you do this to me? But it is so much fun.
Oh, good, because I'm
Yeah.
retired now, so I have time to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, it is mybossTime.com, and it's easy. It's free to create an account, and then it'll just show all the tours, and you just select a year and you go, oh yeah, I was at that one. Yeah, I was at that one. And then behind the scenes, another fun thing, it'll tell you what percentage of albums you've heard. Right.
okay.
Like if you attended, the Second River tour, you've got 100% on that album. But there's others, and you'll find like, oh wow, I'm only missing one song from this album or something. So it's a fun way to play.
Oh, great. Thanks for
Yeah.
that tip.
Yeah. Did you go to Broadway?
Of course.
Very nice. Talk to me about that.
That was amazing. My husband and I went. He's from New Jersey,
Okay.
and I have a great friend in Hoboken. We stayed at a hotel near her, and she literally escorted us into New York to the theater to see the show. And she saw him like a half dozen times. But when you're in New Jersey, you can do that.
Mhm.
But oh my God, I just was spellbound, and I wept. I laughed. I was just thunderstruck by it. And I was working at the radio station at the time, and the general manager was a big Springsteen fan too. But he wasn't going to go to the Broadway show. And when I got back, I went straight to his office and I said, you just have to trust me. You've got to go.
Yeah.
And he did. And he thanked me when he got back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, God, it just leaves me speechless. I can't even describe the feeling and the intensity of the whole thing, but it was amazing. It was so expensive, but worth every penny. I'm glad I went.
Absolutely. Are there other shows? I mean, obviously you've gone to plenty, but are there some that stand out, or the stories you want to share
I have a great story I
love it.
share with you. So this is before social media.
Right.
The best we had was Skype.
Yes.
And so somebody would take the Skype roll and list the songs being played on backstreets.com.
Right.
For various shows. So every show I went to, I missed Jungle Land. He didn't play it. I went like 14 shows in a row, no Jungle Land. So he came to Charlottesville. And at that time, little Steven had his Underground Garage, a syndicated version.
Right.
That played at local radio stations. And I knew the radio stations could go backstage because they were affiliates for the show. Mm-hmm. And so I called my same friend who I didn't work for at the time. He worked at a rival radio station. And I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to ask you this question, but if there's any chance you can get me in backstage to see little Steven. And Dave said, what are you talking about? I went, Dave, your station plays the Underground Garage. The radio stations can get it. I'll call you right back. So, and 10 minutes later, he called me back. He says, we're in. And thank you. He was the program director of the station and didn't even know.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. So we all went. And of course, I was very naive. I brought all this little Steven memorabilia. And of course, we get in no autographs, just pictures. Okay, fine. So we get our pictures, and as I'm slowly leaving, I'm really taking my time. And I had the 45 of Sun City. And I kind of held it up at Steve, and he motioned for me to stay put. So my friends have left, and I'm in there waiting. He gets through all the people, and he signs the Sun City for me.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so I couldn't believe it. So he gives me a hug, and I whisper in his ear, can you get Bruce to play Jungle Land tonight? And he laughs. He goes, you know, I'm not the boss. And I said, I know, but you don't understand. I haven't heard it in years. 14 shows, he's never played it. And there's some people, I guess, that worked with him. It was like, yeah, you should get him to play Jungle Land. So he didn't make many promises. I'll see what I can do. Thanked him profusely, went to my seat. And my brother, who'd never seen Springsteen, was with our group. So he goes through the whole show, doesn't play Jungle Land. All right, whatever. Comes back for the encore, and it's Meeting Across the River. And we all know that he'll play Jungle Land without Meeting, but he never plays Meeting without Jungle Land.
Right.
So now my phone is starting to blow up because everybody on backstreets.com is waiting to what the set list is going to be. And they all know I want Jungle Land. And of course he plays it. And I'm like so thrilled. It was such a beautiful version of it. And I was on the Stevie side of the stage, and I had one of those oversized Underground Garage bumper stickers. So the lights came up, and I started waving it at Steve, and he saw it. And he pointed at me and said, "You're welcome." And my brother goes, "That rock star is talking to you." And I went, "Yeah, well, it's a thing." Finally, we got a hold of the set list, and he had crossed out whatever he was going to play and put in Jungle Land and Meeting. So he wasn't going to play it that night. Steve made it happen. I will take that to my grave. It was the best night ever.
I love that story. For me, the first 7 shows I went to, he never played Thunder Road.
Oh, wow.
I had never heard it. And then I caught it the first time. And then it was the High Hopes tour where they either ended with Thunder Road or Dream Baby Dream. Mm-hmm. And for family reasons, Dream Baby Dream has just become a really special song for my son and my wife and I. And so like each time I'm like, Dream Baby Dream, and he'd do Thunder Road. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to be disappointed I get Thunder Road. I'm not, but I was like, sure. Oh, could I have gotten just Dream Baby Dream once? Oh, I love that. That is a great story. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And, and then I'm getting all these congratulations from
sure.
people, so yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. That's very nice. Have you traveled to to Europe or anything to go shows?
Yes.
Tell me a little about that.
Yeah, that's been the best part about getting a real job and having nights and weekends off.
Yes.
And I was working for a radio station, so I did have the advantage of being able to buy tickets without going through the trauma of trying to get them when they go on sale. That was a great luxury for a few years. And so through Backstreets, meeting people I talked to online at various shows. And, there are a few of us that just became the best of friends, and we've traveled all over together. But I was in Buffalo for Clarence's last show, which of course we didn't know at the time it would be. I've been to Colorado, all over the Eastern Seaboard. But after Danny died and then we lost Clarence, the girls that I hang out with a lot, it's like, we keep saying we're going to Europe. And if we don't do it, it's never going to happen. And of course, there was a lot of speculation at that time that there probably wasn't going to be much E Street.
Right.
So we ended up going to Paris, July 4th weekend.
Nice.
So July 4th in Paris with the boss. He played 2 nights. We were there both nights. It was great. Oh my God. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Paris and then to be there with the boss. It was a wonderful experience. We had great seats, and we roomed, like, this is how the community is. So I'm there with my friend from Colorado. My friend from Buffalo worked with the State Department. She was in Poland at that time, so she came up from Poland. And then Karen has her friend does marketing for one of the venues in Colorado. He has a friend with British Airlines who got us the apartment, the tickets. So it was an international group sharing this Paris apartment and going to Springsteen concerts. So
I love that. That is so awesome. Um, the did you go to Broadway the second time?
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to, but no, just the one time. So I've been trying to think. I'm not even sure what was the last show that I saw. But I mean, I haven't missed any of the tours since Born in the USA.
I always like to ask fans who've gone through the journey, what did you feel like during the dark years? I mean, it's the end of the 80s. He fires the band. He moves, talk to me about that time.
Well, I did go to see him with the new band.
Right.
Matter of fact, my mother went with me. My mother loved Bruce, and she especially loved Clarence.
Okay.
And she and I went together to see Tunnel of Love and the Human Touch tour and the Reunion tour. Mm-hmm. We saw that in DC. So, I mean, he messed up, but he got the band back together. So it all worked out. But, and the other band was okay, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Either Bruce tour solo or tour with the E Street Band. So. Did
you go to any of the Seeger shows, and did you enjoy that?
Oh my God, I loved the Seeger shows. Matter of fact, I went to one of the rehearsal shows at Convention Hall, which was
how fun!
Which was another bucket list. So that was amazing. That was my first time in the pit, in the front of the pit. Mm-hmm. I loved it. Yeah. It was just. The live version of that, I think I saw 4 shows. I would have gone to more, but he didn't do as many.
No, I ended up not seeing that show, and because he didn't come anywhere close to Dallas. And then when I got the Dublin, DVD, I went, wow, I really missed something. So it is interesting, the whole. When you hear little Steven talk about that, and I, when he was on Brian Koppelman the first time, Brian's podcast, Steven talked about that. He tells bands don't break up. He said just that you can go all do solo things and have fun, but never officially break up, because that's it. And I think Bruce and Steven and all of them, I think they wouldn't change anything, because, you change one thing, who knows what happens. But I do agree, if I had to do it over again, I don't know if we would have done that, if we would have, because the sum is greater than the parts. Mm-hmm. Right. It's Bruce and the E Street Band, as he talked about on the Hall of Fame induction. That together is bigger than any of them individually.
Well, I will say with the Seeger sessions.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them were songs, I learned in elementary school.
Sure.
Well, you don't really appreciate them in elementary school. I developed this new appreciation for Americana music through that tour. Yeah. So I wish I'd gone to New Orleans to see him. I had friends that went, but I heard it. So yeah, that was a great tour. I wish there had been more shows. I would have gone to more.
Yeah, I was, so I want to ask you about Western Stars and Letter to You, but I'll start out with it prefacing, when I heard Western Stars, I knew that no way, he's going to tour with this kind of, and I had said before I heard about the film, I'm like, I wish they would do a pay-per-view though of him doing this. And then when I saw the film, I loved it, though I said, I'm greedy. I wish I could have got 6 or 7 regular E Street, E Street Band songs, like the Seeger session, they did some of it in that
Right.
style. It would have
Yes.
been, I'm guilty. I'd be like, I love Rhinestone Cowboy, but I would have loved 4 or 5 other songs that he could have done with that band just to hear them do that. So what were your thoughts about, the last 2 albums?
Well, I wish I had not bought Western Stars and waited to buy the soundtrack to Western Stars from the film.
I have heard other people say that.
Yeah, because it was much better, and he should have used Patty on Stones in the original.
Yeah.
Because that was beautiful. When I got the CD, I actually heard it in my car with the sunroof open, driving down to the Outer Banks, which was perfect environment for that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it's beautiful. I love the orchestrations, and maybe he'll do a couple when the band goes out again. I don't know. But
my hope is he does at least a couple.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with any of them. And so I'm especially, I love Tucson Train. I love Little Steven's version of that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I saw Steven do that. I saw the Soulfire tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, lucky you.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Yeah. So let's talk about Letter to You. Tell me about it, your feelings on it.
I understand, it really comes from something deep. He's definitely reflecting on, he doesn't have that many years left.
Yeah.
And obviously the people that have, come and gone from his life. It's a beautiful record. It's very sentimental and heartfelt and very, very personal. So.
Yeah. And I think it'll always be, I'll see people talking about it. And I always say that emotionally, because it was at the end of that 2020 year, where so much had happened.
Yes.
So much, and I think of that. I don't know if this is a true story, but it feels like it should be true. HBO did that show From Earth to the Moon, right? That was all about the Apollo missions.
Right.
And in one of them, they talk about the Apollo mission that in 1968, they broadcast live, and one of the astronauts read a passage out of Genesis. And supposedly they'd gotten NASA got a telegram that said, "You saved 1968, And I said, if we got a new president, no politics aside, but just if we got a new president and a new Springsteen album, perhaps 2020 will not be the crappiest year ever. And, and so I will always have that album with a special place in my heart. I think like I think a lot of people, that all of us were touched by 9/11, but I think if you especially were in that New York, Jersey area, the Rising means something really special to you.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the other amazing thing, he did that album in 3 days?
Yes.
4 maybe, and you think back where, Born to Run took forever.
Right.
So I like this rapid fire.
Absolutely.
Recording aspect of Bruce now. So.
I agree that, yeah. So you've already talked about Jungerland. What are other albums and songs, Katherine, that have a special place in your heart, that mean something to you?
Well, I mentioned earlier Darkness. I just love that album, and always said if I could really play the piano, the first song I would play would be Racing in the Streets. And if I could really play the guitar, I'd play Adam Raised a Cain.
Okay.
So, although, what I've never been able to accept is some people have said that Darkness was his punk music album. And I just don't hear that in that album. And I love punk rock. I did get into that scene, and that, Bruce was gone. He wasn't putting anything out. And,
yes.
discovered punk music and really got into it because it reminded me a lot of garage music, garage rock.
Yeah.
Just, 3 chords and, beat the drum. So.
Other songs?
Ton of Love.
Mm-hmm.
Walk Like a Man.
Yeah.
So.
I love that.
Yeah. That was a special tour. I remember that one vividly because there was no pit for that tour. And our seats were very close to the stage. And I recall very intently when Patty and Bruce were duetting together. It's like, whoa, get a room.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was invading their privacy. Wow. And then soon after we learned, that wasn't an Oscar-winning performance. That was
true chemistry.
Yes. So that made for a pretty exciting show.
Yeah.
So I love Bruce's covers.
Okay.
They are basically the best little bar band in the world.
Yes, I agree.
And at the Greensboro show, oh God, this was like I lost count, my 8th straight time not getting in the pit.
Okay.
And I was ticked.
Okay.
and I hijacked a golf cart to the box office and bought some tickets behind the stage, which turned out to be great. And a friend of mine at the party before the show, his song request was Hang On Sloopy.
Okay.
And the band did it. And
nice.
Blew the roof off the joint. Yeah, that was great. And those seats were great because the band was literally within arm's reach when they came off the stage. So I got to shake Bruce's hand when he came off stage, recalling later that Bruce was blowing his nose a lot during that show. And the next day I had what I call Bruce flu. So these things happen.
The price we pay for our fandom, right, Catherine? Whatever we need to do.
It was worth it.
Absolutely.
It was worth it. So I've had a few close encounters with Bruce. And
when you worked at the radio station, did you get other close encounters with other significant people in the, pop music or rock and roll?
Oh, yeah. There were always, people coming through to push their albums. I met Ludacris.
Okay.
Jay-Z and Lisa Marie Presley.
Oh, yes.
The roller derby girl. Oh, I can't remember her name.
Okay.
George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. Yeah, I've met a lot of personalities through the years.
Any stories or experiences that stand out?
Well, when Tommy Lee came through from, Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Married to Pamela Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to get near him.
Okay.
He was gross. Did not care for him at all. So, but we'd have a lot of famous stand-up comedians come through. And that was always fun. So.
Yeah. Were you just behind the scenes? Were you on the air ever?
I was a salesperson.
Okay.
So I actually sold advertising.
Okay.
For the station.
Okay.
So
nice.
It was a good gig. I was in it at the right time when, Sirius was just starting. And so radio was still king. So not so much anymore. When I left radio, I went into the newspaper business. And I did that for 14 years. I went back to radio, and you can't go home again. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you can say show business was my life.
Yeah, it was. I could tell. You did film, you did radio, you did print. I mean, a little bit of everything. So, what's your passion now? While you're waiting for a tour, what are you passionate about now?
Well, I have a lot of lot of things I'm interested in. I spend a lot of time in my garden now. I have a beautiful garden. I raise monarch butterflies.
Oh, nice.
Just doing my little part to try to save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been a fan of old movies from the 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So catching up on that a lot. COVID has not been a friend for the last few years. I used to go to shows a lot. A lot of local bands that I know that I support, and it's been hard to make that leap to go back. I did go out St. Patty's Day. An old friend of mine got his band back together.
Oh, how fun.
And they're a rockabilly band, and
Okay.
they cover Pink Cadillac.
Nice.
They do a good job. They do a real good job. So, but I am though going to see Paul McCartney next month.
He was just here in Fort Worth a couple of nights ago as we're recording this. And a couple people on the radio gave a glowing review and said that there are some really cool things that he's doing. Well,
I was kicking myself that I didn't go the last time. And then it was like, he's almost 80.
Right.
Just go. It doesn't matter what it cost. So I have one of my Springsteen pals that I go to shows with lives in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So we're driving up to meet him and his gal. And June 12th, going to see Sir Paul.
Very nice. So are there songs when Bruce gets back on the road, which we all hope, not counting Letter to You and, Western Stars, are there songs you're still chasing? Is there stuff you still want to, you haven't got to hear live that you want to?
Oh, gosh. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I just want him to rock.
Yeah.
I just want him to rock really hard. I want massive guitar solos. I just want to hear some rock and roll.
Okay. Very nice.
You got to ask me about my video. That's how you found me.
Yes. Tell me about the video.
That was a shock that became such a big hit, but someone had put out the male version, and
yes.
being a Libra, I'm like, wait a minute, there's another side to this story.
Right.
So I couldn't resist, and all the conversations were real. They actually happened. So, because my husband will go with me to see Bruce when he comes to town, but he's from Jersey, so he saw Bruce
right.
a lot in small places, and so he's like over it.
So remind everyone the videos that we're talking about, Katherine. So share a little bit, and let's give a little bit of background about why you decided to do it, and just a little bit, give the origin story.
It was a video. It's an animated thing, and you type the dialogue and it voices it. And it was Springsteen versus, I forget which way it goes, but basically it's Springsteen versus your wife, Springsteen versus your husband. And in the first one, the husband is explaining to his wife why he has to go to all these shows. And of course, she's pretty ticked off about it.
Right.
And I'm like, but my life is I'm going to all these shows and my husband gets ticked off about it. So I'm going to do that version. And it's gotten, over 27,000 views. And I had actually forgotten about it when one of the Spring Nuts reposted it on Facebook last week.
Yeah.
And I love that the women love the part where I tell my husband, of course, I would leave you for Bruce if I had the chance, but you'd get a great settlement, so it would be a win-win. So
yes. My favorite line on the other one is the brown hair, because he always wants to play, redheaded woman. And they are just so beautiful. They're your whole comments about it and I remember I was in Nashville for a show, and I called my wife and I said, "Yeah, I'm meeting up with some people I met online for dinner. Are they're women? Yeah, aren't?" I said, "Aren't you worried about meeting strangers?" Like, well, no, because one, they're Bruce fans, and two, we're meeting at a public restaurant, and shouldn't they be more worried about a strange guy meeting them? I mean, and so, and one of the people was Donna with Bruce Funds. And, and it is one of the reasons why I've been able to do this over 7 years is with all, with all, you know, reverence and respect to Deadheads and all these other,
Right.
people that love bands, there is something about being a Springsteen and E Street Band fan that brings us together.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, my closest friends now are people I met through Springsteen.net and then Backstreets.
Yeah.
And then we're just a little club, and we try to hit as many shows together. Sometimes I can't make it to this show, and sometimes they can't make it to one I'm going to. But I've been in their homes; they've been in my home, and yeah, we're just the best friends. It's weird because locally, the people I went to school with and I live near, they're just not into it at all.
Yeah.
And some of them I've taken to the shows, and they're like, okay, that was fun, but they never want to go again. I'm
right.
like, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
What is your problem?
Right.
So thank God for them. I never would have made it to Paris if it had been for my friend Karen out of Colorado. Mm-hmm. And that was such a memorable experience, and so much fun. Blisters and everything, I'm not used to walking on cobblestones.
Oh, I bet.
But it was worth it. So, and there's just been so many connections. It's been a while, but I used to go to lots of events up in Asbury Park. I've only been to one Light of Day, but Bruce was there, so that worked. So the soap monument that was put up in Asbury Park, that was the first time. That's really when I sealed a lot of these friendships.
Okay.
From there. And that was a fun experience. And of course, everybody thought Bruce was going to show up. I know better. But, I met Vinnie Lopez and Tinker and, Southside. So and they came to Norfolk when Clarence passed, and the city happened to be a client of mine. They contacted me. They wanted to do a concert for Clarence. So I had met his brother, Bill. And so I hooked them together. And then really we had New Jersey and Norfolk. Gary Talent came down, Southside, Beaver Brown, Jake Clemens, of course, was there, Nick Clemens. And they played 2 nights in a row. We did it at this beautiful older theater that was the only Black theater in Norfolk back in the day. And then they did a bigger show. And after the show, I'm shooting down drinks with Vinny and Tinker. I mean, that's how this world works.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
So, yeah, it's kept me going.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Those friendships and those encounters and that music, just means so much.
It really does. Yeah. All right. Before I get you out of here, I end every episode with the Mary question. So let me give a little preference. If you are a friend of Katherine's listening to this podcast, thank you. If you're one of her many Backstreet buddies, thank you for listening. Jay Armstrong is a recently retired honors English teacher. He taught high school English. He has a new book out, Bedtime Stories for the Living. But he would take his honors English class and they would spend 2 days breaking apart Thunder Road. They would compare it to Robert Frost and other American poets. They would look at the imagery, they'd look at the lyrics, they'd look at what the themes Bruce is exploring. And then at the end of the 2 days, he asked the class the question, does Mary get in the car? So, Katherine, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car?
Hell yeah, she gets in the car. Good Lord. And if she doesn't, well, she regretted it for the rest of her life.
I love it. Very nice. Good answer. All right. Is there any final thoughts you want to share?
I just want to thank you for the invite. It's actually been a while since I've talked Bruce. And so it was good to think back on a lot of my great memories. And I'm looking forward to some new ones. So
I am too. Hopefully we can meet up on the road. Katherine, this is so wonderful, you spending time with me. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
They can email me at katherinebyrd@gmail.com.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter.
Yes. Okay.
Just as Katherine Byrd. It's, no fancy names.
All right. Very nice. Listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and let's all be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. I want and need your feedback. You can reach me multiple ways to tell me what you like or don't like about the show. You can reach out to give me guest suggestions or maybe to join me on the podcast yourself. We're on Twitter at SetListingBruce or at Jesse Jackson DFW. I have an Instagram, SetListingBruce or Jesse Jackson DFW. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/SetListingBruce. Go to patreon.com/SetListingBruce to find out how you can support the show, and we have several tiers of support. Please go to your favorite podcast player and hit subscribe and tell a friend about the podcast because that is the way we're going to grow. If you're not tired of hearing me speak, you can hear me on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Charles Skaggs and I talk all things Doctor Who. The How Many podcast, where me and my friends Gary, Scott, Bob, and Jr. talk pop culture. And finally, my newest podcast, The Last Best Hope for Conversation, a Babylon 5 podcast, where Karen, Lou, and I are going through the TV show Babylon 5 one episode at a time. I am always looking for guests, so please reach out to me, setlistingbruce@gmail.com. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission. And we're out. Great job, ma'am.
Thank you. That was fun.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good time. You were wonderful. I appreciate all the stories.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad I had some good stories to tell. And my Charlottesville story is, the ultimate for me.